Hello! I will explain a little bit about the amazing jacket I'm wearing in just a minute, but welcome to this session that's going to be on creating an Atlassian enablement program. I'm going to give folks a little bit of time to trickle on in, and then we are going to get started. While we're waiting, though, I'm going to drop a quick poll in the chat, assuming I can find the right button, just to give us something to start talking about. And I have to type in everything. There we go. All right, we've got a quick poll just to keep us busy while folks join us. And just curious where folks happen to be from, if you've got a minute. I'm out in the Bay Area, California. All right, we are about to get started with mostly slides today. I'll see how much hands-on I can weave in. Ohio, welcome, Sarah. Arslan voted for snowmen. Let's see, who else? What else? About half the folks in here voted for a very meowy Christmas. I'll spoil it. That's the one that won. Iceland, amazing. Tak, hopefully I said that right, for coming. Welcome from the Ukraine. We have a very international audience. I love it. Costa Rica, amazing. I've been fortunate enough to go there twice. Yeah, but would love to go back. I have been to Iceland once. I've never been to Ukraine or the Eastern Europe area, I'll call that. Something I want to fix at some point in my lifetime, but we'll see. Welcome, Stefan from Germany. I've been through many airports in Germany. Oh no. Aha! I do some work with an Icelandic, someone who speaks Icelandic, so I've picked up how to say thank you, and that's about it. Please don't quiz me. Okay, folks, we are going to get started. Most of what I'll be talking about today will be in slides, and that is because, welcome Dave from Poland, I've been to Gdansk, or Gdynia, I forget the exact pronunciation, but that area. Most of this will be slides, because this will mainly be concepts around how do we build an enablement program in our organizations to support our team. This for me is a very important topic, and I'll talk a lot more about it. Craig, welcome from SoCal. I was just there in October. And Sarah, I was spoiled earlier in my life. My parents focused on travel and exploring the world over other things. So that was just something I got very lucky with. But quick way of introduction. My name is Rob. I've had a career in information technology, mostly in the IT project management space. You might call me a technical program manager, mainly working with internal teams. For example, human resources, on how to better use systems to support what they do. And this includes the entire Atlassian stack. So how do we take Jira and Confluence and all those things, and better support our internal teams? Now, for this, I thought about all my experience doing that. And I have bootstrapped these programs. So I have created programs like this for almost my entire career. How do we train people to be better at a system? And I have some stories in the middle. I'm weaving in story time just to share what's going on. But first, I need to explain why I'm wearing this amazing jacket. And about a third of us have no idea what I'm even talking about. This was originally scheduled for yesterday. Unfortunately, there happened to be a event at my kid's school that I entirely forgot about. And so I ended up going to that instead. It took about half an hour. And folks were messaging me saying, "Hey, Rob, you coming to this session you said you would do?" I missed that. So my apologies to the group. I will remind folks, though, that there are things in our lives that are more important than our work. And for me, that is family. So I'm sorry I missed you all yesterday. As a apology or act of contrition, I instead put out a poll saying which blazer should I wear. Our options were between this one and another one that had snowmen all over it. So that's why I'm wearing this amazing jacket, and you will see me in this for the rest of the year every time I'm live. Interaction, please use the chat. I will do things like drop in polls and other things to engage with us in the chat. Ask your questions, help each other out. We can see Sarah's talking about the Project Management Professional, PMP. Sarah, I've got some other resources for you specifically. I'll share those later. But if you have ideas or information that can help other people, please jump in there and share it with other folks. Everything we can do to support and help each other is a good thing. Please also like the stream if you like this. Easiest way to support me. And also subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Weekly videos on Atlassian stuff, other great content. There is also a QR code under me. This goes to a site that will let you get a copy of the deck I am using. In addition, it will include template slides that you can use to create your own enablement program. So they're just very basic slides to give you something to start with. So when you decide to start building out your enablement program, you have a starting point. It's got a lot of placeholders, but it's intended to speed you up. So please check out that QR code. I'm going to drop the same exact link directly in our chat. But please use that just to get more information. Arslan wants me to switch jackets, maybe for the next stream. So the basic things we're going to cover, why are we even bothering with enablement? Like, why do we care? What do we get from it? And then we'll talk about the benefits. Okay, people want me to switch jackets every 20 minutes. That might get challenging. Should I switch jackets every 20 minutes? I'm just going to put this poll in there and see what happens, folks. But then we'll talk about different models of enablement, different things we can do to enable our teams. Now, this will be important because there's different ways we can choose to do this based on our resources, based on other things that we happen to have available. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about just some ideas on training, some fun, exciting, well, hopefully fun and exciting things that we can do to better engage with folks. Just to make it a bit better than, hey, here's a bunch of slides. So on my first slide, we can see that a image broke, which is unfortunate. But what is enablement? Essentially, it's training. It's enabling the team to do their job better and ensuring the people that work with you have the skills they need to be effective and successful. This is very, very frequently skipped, especially when it comes to things like Confluence, things like Jira. And I can't fault teams for this. It makes sense, right? We are focused on building better code. We are focused on selling a product, etc. Now, stereotypically, some groups tend to get enablement and some don't. Sales frequently gets an enablement team. Some organizations might have a learning and development team that helps with this, but frequently, especially with these products, this does not exist. So, did all my pictures break? This is going to be a very boring slideshow. I'm sorry. What I'm going to do is help you justify your program and then think through your plan. I briefly spoke about this. And we're going to look at a lot of broken images. I'll see if I can fix this very quickly. How did these all decide to break? We're going to talk about things like, yes, I fixed it with a refresh. Amazing. Go, Rob. Now, there's a bunch of reasons why to do it, and this is justification for you to take to your team, to your manager, to your executives. There is a return on investment. I'll talk about the return on investment we get. So far, folks, you don't want me to change jackets, thank you, because that would take a lot of, oh no, it's changing. But we also have tool sprawl. Your team will just find things to go use, then you'll end up with multiple tools. It also helps speed up or accelerate teams, and also retains talent. I'll dig into each of these. So in these slides, I'll have a general idea, but then I'll dig into what is the ROI. Now, training in general increases efficiency. Imagine you're brand new to Confluence, and this was my experience, and no one shows you how to make a page. You're going to struggle for 15, 20, 60 minutes, a few hours to go do the basic thing. Instead, if someone shows you in 5 minutes, here's how to do it, you can just go do it. This also helps reduce siloing. People will find ways to add information, and that information might be put somewhere that is not beneficial or not the best. It led to a 404 error. Well, Aslan, thank you for telling me. I'll get my IT guy on it. It also reduces waste. If we think through what folks are doing, they're going to be wasting time and wasting what's going on, or wasting their day trying to fix something. And this is wastage, right? They're not doing the job they should be doing. So if we can identify what someone needs to know in order to be successful and ensure they have it, we actually save money. The 15 minutes we spend training will be paid back because they don't make those mistakes. Another big thing that I experience is called tool sprawl. And this is where we end up with people doing what they think is best. They go through and they make up, or they go find the tool they've used in the past. I have seen this very, very frequently, where we end up with folks who just out of their best intention start using, I'll say, Asana or something else to go solve a problem because they know how it works. And this is problematic because soon your team is going to end up with multiple tools that they're using and multiple things in different places. So if we can reduce this, we help focus the team and we also focus our knowledge. So this is another great benefit. It also speeds folks up. Now, there's a concept of a system of work, which is kind of like, how do we do it? But also just familiarity with the tools will make your team more effective at doing the thing. So again, think of your job. Anytime you've been asked to do something, if you have to struggle and fight with a system, like I'm struggling and fighting with my website right now to try and make it work, that's going to frustrate people. That's going to make people upset. That's going to make people disengage, right? And not do work as quickly as they could otherwise. And this leads us right into retention. If you're working somewhere and you just start your job and you're all excited and then you run into this roadblock where you try and download a file and you can't, it's going to be like, oh, that's disappointing. Like Aslan was really excited to get this file and he can't get it now. So this has an impact on our teams. This all feeds into our ability to retain talent, which has an immediate cost in terms of recruiting or training or other things. So those are some of the reasons we do this. That return on investment is big, but also we're focusing the team. We're reducing other tools that we might need to use. Arslan, if you could check now, please. I think I fixed it. And thank you for letting me know. I appreciate folks who call me out when things break. And it still doesn't exist. Well, I'm going to go yell at my IT guy. Now, I learned all this hands-on. So I was never trained on enablement programs. One example I have of this is at a company that had 40,000 global workers in over 60 countries. I was the people systems manager. And what I did is I said, hey, director of people systems or senior director or VP, I would like 10 minutes with every new person who joins the team. They can be as a group or individual to walk them through the tools we use and why we use them. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. So I got 10 minutes with every new hire. And this was specifically for HR generalists. So there would be one or two of these people a month. They would get 15 minutes with Rob to discuss how do we use Jira? What is Jira? Why should I care about Jira? Super important because then those people went out and they had to use Jira to support the team. And because I got time with them, they were able to do their job. We saw a very low incidence of people who I trained having challenges actually using the system, which was amazing. But they were also able to more effectively help coworkers who had problems with, in this case, human resources. So that is one story I have of working with a large global team, hundreds of trainings in a year, to enable them to do their job. They're HR experts. They're not Jira experts. I can help them with that. Now, there's a lot of costs to enablement. One is something that Gemini coined, an AI tool, just called Jira-itis. Now, this is like the feeling of ick when you have to use Jira, right? The knowledge gap, and then you also have this knowledge gap. But you can also expose yourself to security and compliance concerns. So first about Jira-itis, and another horribly created word of the year, by the way, from what Merriam-Webster is slop, AI slop right here, created with Gemini. Forcing people to figure it out will result in different ways of using a tool. Forcing people to go through and figure out how do we use it on our own will result in different ways of it being used. And then you have problems because Arslan team uses it one way, Sarah's team uses it another way. This makes it very hard for you to manage it and for you to keep track and help people. So this is one major cost of not enabling. Arslan also has one called the Jirocracy. I like that. Next are these knowledge gaps. where you have people, you'll have information loss. Improve IT will know one thing really well, and Arslan won't. One team will work better than the other. You also have repetitive work. If someone doesn't know how to bulk change something, they'll do it multiple times, wasting time. You also get improper documentation shared out. And again, that repetitive work, I put it in here multiple times, kind of as a joke. It's intended to be repetitive. But these are some of the costs. We end up with these differences. I'm also still trying to fix that link. I will make sure folks get a copy of this PowerPoint if you sign up. Just drop your email on that landing page. I'll make sure you get a copy. But we also have SecCom. I made up this acronym, Security Compliance. It sounds kind of cool. But users can inadvertently leave gaps or expose themselves to things. I've seen teams accidentally do things like email sensitive files to someone because they didn't know where or how to share it appropriately. Also, the vote is in. I'm not going to be changing jackets as we go, just so I don't confuse folks. But this can be a big problem, especially for a public company or a company looking for some kind of certification like ISO, 2701 or 27001 or whatever it is. I do see a question about, have I experienced people blaming the tool? I'll talk about that in the next story time. Training helps mitigate all these things, though. So some basic enablement can help prevent these. Now, Improve IT, this story relates to that. I was looking for other pictures of story time, and for some reason, this one of cats that are all coffee cups came up. So this is story time. I was a new hire at a company that used Jira. No one trained me. I accidentally deleted something like 10,000 work items. Accidentally. I was using the bulk tool, and I did something that resulted in breaking Jira. The admins were very unhappy. And this is where people tend to blame this system. They will say Jira is broken. All my work items disappeared. When really, I didn't know what I was doing. Other examples of this, more to improve IT's question, would relate to us not understanding our own process. And I'll talk about our process around enablement as we go. But anytime we don't understand the why and the how, why are we doing this thing and how are we going to do it, we are going to run into challenges with the system, with people understanding how should I use it? What is the best way to use it? And so in this example, I didn't know what I was doing. No one had showed me the basic thing of how do you work with bulk groups or bulk items. Now, fortunately, the admin was very upset with me, but this person took the time to teach me and show me a proper way to do these things. And now we're actually friends. So I got lucky with this guy. But this is kind of an extreme example of I didn't know and I made a mistake. Oops. So that's why we do it. We get all this return. We avoid challenges. But there's a bunch of foundational parts we need to consider before we do this. This is similar to that question on process. What is our process around setting up an enablement system? The first thing we need to consider is our governance, how it will be managed. Next is what kind of criteria are we going to have around training? Does everyone get the same training, or is it going to be based on what someone does? And then do we need some kind of resource hub? Now, the governance covers things like how will we use the system? How will we make a new space? How will we define our issues? Some of this work might already have been done, but sometimes it might not have been done. And so before we enable people, we have to decide on the why and how. Why are we doing this? To track our work. How are we going to do it? A story will mean this. A task will mean that. But also things like who to go to for help, or who is responsible for responding, or who owns the process of enablement. Next, we have role-based learning. How are we going to figure out how we will train people? Role-based means we group people by what they do. We have admins, we have developers, we have support reps, we have HR. And then we have to figure out how should each of these groups be using our tools. Only then should we be building out actual learning. If I don't understand what Improve IT does, I can't enable them. And I can't enable people like them to do better or, do gooder work. Awful way to say it. So taking time to figure out who are we supporting and why is very important. And then we need some kind of resource hub. How are we going to give people the resources they will need in order to be successful? Now, what we're seeing here is a screenshot of Confluence, which we might have access to, and we can build out a space in Confluence that does it. But we might use something else. Regardless, we want somewhere people can go for a source of truth on how our team uses these systems. Now, this augments our generic resources. Atlassian Learning is an amazing resource because it tells us a lot about what people need to know or what happens when we click the buttons. However, it does not tell my team how we use it. It does not inform a new hire how we choose to use a work item. And that's incredibly important information. So we'll include that, but also best practices and other topics that someone can just go to and self-serve. So that's some foundational stuff. Like, what's the governance? Who are we supporting? How are we going to support them? But then there are different models of how we choose to support. And please use the chat to tell me to slow down if I'm going quick. There's a lot of stuff in here. And maybe I do need a follow-up on this. The file's still not sticking. This is driving me nuts. We've got 3 major models. There's a center of excellence, a COE, there's a champion-based model, and then there's self-service. The center of excellence, or COE model, is when you have a dedicated team that is responsible for owning the thing you're talking about. Now, in this case, the thing you're talking about is enablement. You'll also see the term COE in other areas. Your organization might have a COE for supporting customers, or one for HR. Now, there's some pros, some advantages. Consistency. The same 3 people, 10 people, 20 people will be responsible for supporting people in a certain way. And you'll have good decision making. Those people will be able to make the same decisions in a collective team. It can be slow, though, because you'll have to go through that center of excellence, that COE, excuse me, and make it happen. It can also feel bureaucratic. For example, if I have to go to the COE to get help or do something, it can be challenging because it's another hurdle, another thing that I have to go through to get there. Next, you have this champions model. And this is where you might have a core admin yourself who really supports and helps people. But you train champions, individuals who are super users or know more, to go handle training. This is a model I really like. I'm going to drop a quick poll. If you've used any of these models, because it scales easily. I can train a group of 5 champions to go help their teams, or 10 champions. And this then allows the champion to tailor it just for their individual team. For example, I could train Sarah on how to use Jira and why we choose to use it, and then she can go back to her software team and adjust it for their specific needs. So this gets someone closer to the work and can help take what you've made as a generalized training and make it more successful for individual teams. We see this commonly too when we do a software implementation. We find the super users, we train them up, and they go help spread the word. It does require a lot of buy-in, though. You have to get both the champions to buy into doing this, but also maybe their managers to support it, to give you some of that person's time. And you have to have a robust train-the-trainer program or idea. For example, I have to go train all of these champions and make sure what's going on. And that can be a lot. It requires a lot of soft skills to get their buy-in. Next, we have this self-service model. This one, and I use these models not interchangeably, but I tend to fall back on the self-service and the champions. I will have a lot of champions and then enable them with self-service. At its extreme, though, self-service is allowing individual teams to manage things on their own with minimal intervention from yourself or a centralized group. This is maximum autonomy. Each individual team can go in and do it their own way. However, it can result in inconsistency. Your developers might train people on Jira differently than your support team, differently than your HR team. This will cause challenges as you go. Excuse me. So you want to be careful with this one and have a very strong structure to start with and a very strong relationship with these teams to help them out. And it can very, very easily move into tool sprawl, it's called, where individual teams decide that they want to do it differently. At its extreme, I saw a company do this where they spent many thousands of dollars on a OKR, objective key result system, and then an entire organization, engineering, just decided to do it differently. So self-service can be attractive because it feels simple, but it can have a high cost with that kind of thing. Got some comments here on underestimate, know how people know about Jira. Yes, people don't know what they don't know. That's a great call from Improve IT, and that's why we need this enablement. We cannot and should not assume that new hire knows Jira, just the generics. We also must assume they know nothing about how our organization uses it because they're new, right? They've never done this before. They've never worked at your company probably. And if they have, things have changed. So at the very least, they need to know our process, how we do the thing. The champions model sounds like when I've trained project admins. Yes. So Arslan is saying you might train up your space or project admins a little bit extra. Those people tend to be champions because they're more involved. They expected a lot to do more. Sarah's saying a lot of people at our company would love it if we just gave it a chance. Yes. And this enablement can help get them into it. Now, again, I like the champion model because it, one, allows me to meet a lot of people, but also then enables individual teams. Now, one of my first roles was building out a knowledge base for essentially a new tool that we implemented called an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, that was responsible for managing 6,000 workers across a dozen sites all over North America. And each office had an office manager. These individuals, managed the office, but they were also the main system admin for their office. So what I did is I got them all on calls every month, and I trained them extensively on how to use the system. So this was hands-on. I built out documentation for them. I made them champions, and I told everyone, go to your office manager, because I trained them. They know what's up. And then I would have them handle most of the questions, and then I would work with them monthly to address other things in these check-ins. So this was a big investment with these office managers that resulted in a lot of support for my team and the greater company of 6,000 people, because they knew, oh, I know office manager John or Sally or Susan. I'm just going to go talk to them about my problem entering a request. And they can help me because they've been trained. And they also had the confidence to go do that. That was a massive, massive thing. So this gave me strong results, and it's a model that I have borrowed, continued to use over time. All right, I can't fix this darn file thing, so what I'm going to do is add a link to it on that landing page. It's going to take you to a Canva template, it's called, and that will just give you access to it, and that's just because I can't fix it right now, and it's driving me crazy. I apologize for the bad experience. Boop. So, again, I like the champions model. It lets me get hands-on with a lot of folks. And make sure that every team or office or location has someone who's local that they know who can help them. So those are the models we have. That center of excellence, which can require a lot more investment. But then we've got champions, a lot more hands-on, and self-service. So once we've made the decision over that, we need to build a team. And depending on what we've chosen, that team might be bigger or smaller. For example, if I'm going self-service, I might be the team. If I'm going center of excellence, I might have 4 or 5 people who can help. Once I've done that, I need to think about who am I working with and what roles do I need. Now, in this sense, a role is just what somebody does. And an individual can have multiple roles. For example, if you are doing self-service and it's just you are every role. Congratulations, you've been promoted. If you have a COE, you might have one person just does the admin stuff. One person just does this other thing. Arslan, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I hold myself to a high standard. I do this professionally. I also want to make sure all of you have the best resources possible. So that's why I'm like about my mistakes when I do this. So once we've done that, figure out the rules, you also then need a catalog. What are you going to share or train, or how are you going to do it? And then you need a process. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? In the same way, we have to make sure our team understands what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. The people we're working with on our team within the COE also have to be aware of all of these things. So these roles on our team will differ depending on what we need. But we'll need something like a platform owner. This might be our Jira admin. And I fixed that link, so if you all would like copies of this deck and this will go to a Canva file you can download, please feel free to jump on in there. You might need admins, your Jira admin. You might need an enablement specialist. And these roles don't have to be full-time. In many organizations, I go to the L&D, Learning and Development team, and say, hi, I would like 1 hour a month to talk to an expert on how to structure learning. And they might say, great, we have someone. Or they might say, do you need more time? What do you want to do? Or I go to my human resources team if there's no specific L&D team. Other groups you could look at, sales tends to have enablement, and engineering or developer operations tend to have someone who might be able to help you think through these things. But you'll have these roles, and then you'll know who to go to when something happens, or you can call them in to help improve or augment your structure. Next, though, you need a service catalog. You've got a team, then you got to think through what are we going to enable? What are we going to support? Typically, it can't be everything. So you'll have to define what you will for sure support and what you won't. For example, you might start out just saying, we're only going to support Jira and Confluence. And then later you might say, and then we'll add Bitbucket. I'm making up examples. Or maybe you'll say, we're only going to start supporting the HR and support teams and see how it goes. And then we'll expand to someone else. Your decision here will be based on your resourcing and what you're expected to do. So once you have your team, you know who can help you. This determination will then define what you'll be building out. So we're kind of building up, right? Like figure out who's helping you and then figure out what you're all going to do. And then there's a lot of change management and process. Typically at organizations I've worked with, there is nothing like this. We start out from a blank slate. And this means I have to go train people like, no, stop making stuff up and come to this enablement team that I've created. And that can take a lot. You'll have to figure out how do we, I'll say advertise this? How do we make people aware of how this is going? And I'm going to drop a quick question in the chat. Just out of curiosity, if folks have an enablement program at their organization, and I'll say of any kind. And again, this could be your sales enablement, this could be your support, just somebody. Now, your process will include how changes to the platform might be made. And if you don't control that, you'll have to go figure out which team does and then work with them to understand, hey, Arslan, I know we don't own Jira, but when you make changes to it, how do we get updated so we can train other people on how this works? It will also help you clearly define who can do what, though. And this is important because on your team and on external teams, you'll have to understand who can make changes to Confluence. We should make sure we know who they are so we can talk to them or loop them into enablement we're doing. This helps you avoid surprises and helps you better support the broader organization. Okay, I am talking really fast and trying to cram in as much as I can. A quick break for me to drink coffee and for you all to help me out. I'm constantly looking for ways to do this better. This session came out of some feedback I got on, hey Rob, can you share things that aren't just like how-to or beginner level stuff? So I put this together. I would love your feedback. This QR code goes to a Google form where you can let me know what you think. Any feedback, complimentary or otherwise, and this is what the form looks like, will help me out. What else do you want to learn? What was good? What was bad? If you want to join a mailing list, let me know. If not, that's fine. It can be anonymous. But please tell me how I can better serve you and help you learn more or different things or better. And I can see some of you poking around my slide deck already. I love that. The first 50 or so slides are this deck. The last 8 or 9 are a template you can extract and then use for your own purposes. Ooh, I need my coffee. All right. For the folks who have an enablement program, I'm curious what kind of program you've got. Just to see what else exists. Like what are people doing at your org that helps support others? Or maybe doesn't. So that's all of our structure. Like thinking through why are we doing it? What return do we get? And that helps you sell it to your team, right? But then, how do we build a team around it? Or what form does this take? Are we going to do that center of excellence? Are we going to do the champions? Are we going to do something else? Now we're going to talk about just some ideas you can use. So this goes more into like, how are you going to do it? How are you going to actually enable people? There are many different ways. This live stream is one example. It is not the only example. So, just some creative ideas we have. Now, these are just some ideas, but you can have a themed event around it. A themed event for this was having people vote on the blazer I should be wearing. A themed event on Jira could be, we're going to make cookies using Jira. We're all going to set it up together. Gamification. How can you make it more like a game? And I know that this term gets thrown around a lot, so I'll talk more about it in a minute. But also micro-learning. How do you give someone a small piece of information that they can immediately use to be successful? Now, the gamification route can be challenging because when we think of this, we tend to think of, I don't know, I play Xbox, you get these achievements for doing a thing. It's really complicated. This can be simple. Just reward engagement. Hey team, we have these, we have put 5 work items in Jira with special code words. The team that finds the most of these code words, gets a public shout out to encourage people to go search. Hey team, we have made a brand new Confluence space with an Easter egg hidden inside it. The first person to find it, gets a $5 Starbucks card. I'm making up examples, but you want to reward the engagement. We don't want to reward the doing the thing successfully necessarily, because many times the point of enablement is to get people used to the thing. You can choose a target like success, right? But just having people engaged and doing something is what we want. Right now, I have 9 people engaged with the poll. That's amazing. I'm not saying you have to vote yes or no. I'm just saying, hey, there's this poll. My measure of success there is people are clicking it, not which answer. You also want to consider the desired behavior or outcome. In my example, you're searching. You want people to learn search. So you go hide things to make people find them. Or maybe it's bulk actions. You want people to use bulk action correctly. So you have a challenge who can bulk action exactly 43 items with one field. I'm making up examples. Also, I think this photo of people playing video games, they all look very bored. It's the best one I could find. But we also have micro-learning. I'm doing a 1-hour session right now on this. That's a lot of information. I could also have chosen to do this as a YouTube short, a 1-minute thing. I did this with everything you have to know on Confluence. It's a series of YouTube shorts. You watch it for 2 minutes, you learn something new, you move on. With these, we want them to be short and easily accessible and very targeted tasks. How do I just make a micro-learning? That's probably pretty big. How do I make a micro-learning in Loom, Atlassian's video collaboration platform? Better. My targeted task might be create a page in Confluence. How can I do that in 10 seconds or less? So when I think of everything I want to enable people on, it's identifying what my team on enablement will support, but then breaking it down into very targeted things so I can quickly put in front of someone a Loom video and they can go, oh, that's how I download this PDF that I need. Oh, that's how I search, or whatever the task is. And I'm picking on Loom because it's available through the stack of Atlassian, but this could be anything. This could be a simple page in Confluence. This could be, there's a place I worked that they stopped doing this, but they would tape up, they called it Learning in the Loo, a piece of paper with tips in all the bathrooms. And it was like, 5 sentences on how to do something better. I don't recommend putting learning in the bathroom, but an interesting example of micro-learning. Hands-on context, though, is also really important. So when we think of what we're training people on, there are concepts. Yes, learning and enablement is important, but then there's also hands-on things. How do we make it more real? In the picture here, we're seeing, I think the correct term is beauticians, performing manicures. They're practicing on a fake hand, but this simulates reality. This is literally hands-on. I hope people get the pun. But we have things like tool teardowns, simulations, and speed learning. I can't call it speed dating. That's a different thing. A tool teardown, though, is a breakdown of a space or of a tool. In the case of Jira, this might be me sitting down with all the Jira admins and showing them, hey, here's one space that was set up well. Let's pull it apart to understand why. Or I might take my engineers and say, hey, engineers, Rovo Dev is a thing now. We're going to explore it together. And this is important because it is close to the work, right? I can take something they've worked on and then analyze it. Now, this does require some buy-in and a feeling of safety. Like, I have to trust that when Arslan does this, they're not going to do it to point out all the mistakes I made. But it's a great way to help get wins and to make it real. Here's the thing you actually built. Here's how we can improve it based on these ideas. And it can have immediate impact. People are going to go away from this kind of learning and go, I see exactly how I can use that tool better. You also have simulations, though. Now, when we think of simulations, as this photo suggests, we tend to think of, hey, everyone put on some VR goggles and let's do that. It doesn't have to be this immersive. You could. I would be very curious how someone could, do Jira in VR. Would you put on your goggles and then would you just see yourself sitting at your computer? I don't know. But think of this like role play, right? I might bring a few people together virtually or in person and say, all right, Sarah, you're going to be my customer. Arslan, you're going to be my customer support rep, my agent in Jira Service Management. And Sally, you're going to be the space admin. And we're going to go through putting in a work item and then responding to it and sharing it. And that gives them a real idea of what is this like. They'll see the challenges with the system or the advantages or what they trip over or forget. And it gives them immediate feedback. If Sarah puts in that request and then Arslan can't find it as the agent, they go, whoops, I made a mistake. And making those mistakes in a safe place helps them learn because we're simulating what they should be doing. Now, all these are even better if you can pull real life examples from your organization. One thing that drives me nuts in training is when I'm presented with training, but they don't tie it back to something. For example, for compliance training, a lot of it's very generic. Well, bribery is bad, but if you have an example from your company of, hey, just a heads up, we caught a vendor trying to bribe our CFO with $10,000, you go, oh, wow. And, they don't give specifics, but these things happened. Then it feels more real. It makes it closer to reality, which is really important with training. We also have speed learning. Think of this as rapid fire prompts. This is similar to microlearning or can be woven into it, but you might send out a challenge to people. Hey, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to stand up a new space with these requirements. Go. And just see what happens. Now, it should be based on real world use cases. Customer, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to enter a request type for this need. Agent, I'm going to give you a minute to find, a medium priority task. Make sure it's small though. If it's supposed to be fast, we're building that muscle memory. We don't want this to be a very large thing. Stand up a new Jira instance, probably too big for speed learning. But set up email intake in Jira Service Management. Yeah, I could probably do that in speed learning. Again, what I'm trying to isolate here is what do I want that person to learn? A small skill that can be quickly done, and then I can give them a challenge, do it very fast. And I'm quickly seeing if anyone shared out. I think I saw, where'd you go? Arslan, the previous role, lead and tech guys with tag team project managers to deliver customer experience to government clients. Actually, hand-holding is something I didn't call out in here, but there are times where, as the expert in the system, you might sit down and side-by-side work with someone. So that is something I didn't cover in this deck. It tends to be very resource-intensive, but it's how I learned a lot. Again, I made a mistake. I deleted 10,000 work items, so I needed help. That kind of ties us into embedding enablement. When we think of enablement, it shouldn't just be this thing that hangs out over there. It should be something that my team can access immediately when they need the help. I'm going to quickly pop into a Jira instance and show you what this looks like in Jira. Not what I wanted. I'm in the wrong thing. Because Atlassian actually includes in-context help directly in their products. And I don't know how many folks actually use this, but there's a little help button right at the top, help. And this will bring up information, but also you can pop right into articles. So I don't have to go anywhere special to get this. This is just right there. This is an example of in-context learning, something that is available. And this might just be contextual help. It could be some kind of automation that makes something pop up and boom, here's information. Or you might, what I call do template first. Now the contextual help in this example of Atlassian would be something like a dedicated Confluence page. Imagine you had a page for your human resources people on how to respond to an escalated employee. They might have a smart link directly to that page everywhere. When a work item is created about that, in the description or in a field or somewhere, there's a link they click and they know that goes right to the guide on how to handle this. Or maybe this is in a Rovo agent that you've built out. And you say, hi, Rovo agent, I'm looking at ticket number HR help 123. Please advise on how I should proceed. The idea here is to reduce the distance between I need to know something and here's a thing I know. If that is just written down in a Confluence page somewhere, that's a pretty big distance. I have to go search for it. If it pops up in the smart link directly in the description, in a comment somewhere else where it's on the work item or in the Confluence page, it's much easier to find. And it makes it easier for my team to respond. Next, we have automations. And this is one that I haven't played with too much because I didn't think about it for a long time. But imagine if every Monday, every agent in your organization got an automated email that was just the tip of the week. Or maybe if every Monday a Slack message was automatically sent to your team Slack that included, the best learning from last week, or the newest learning thing, or an update on the next speed learning session. So we can start to feed this out automatically. A big challenge I have with enablement is making sure people know about it. And if I can have the system just automatically put things out there for people to go get, that makes my life a lot easier. Imagine if every time a work item was created, a comment is automatically added for agents saying, oh, also, here's a link to what you might need. There are other features that do this. Jira Service Management has playbooks that will automatically attach a playbook of information directly to the page. I'm seeing a lot of hearts. I don't know what the hearts are for. If someone could tell me what all the hearts are for, just popping up in chat. Thank you for whoever's putting them. By having that pop up automatically, again, you're reducing the distance between I don't know how to do this and I figured it out. That gap is where people get frustrated. And that gap can be bigger or smaller, but not everyone is comfortable jumping over the gap. And that's what we're trying to solve for with these automations. Now, there's also a template first mentality. What that means in this context is sorry. I'm going to change the poll because I did a stupid. I do these quite a bit. One thing I'm working on calling myself out when I make a mistake and sharing it. So exposing what I do wrong, but who sees the mistake on this page? And I'll leave this up for just a few minutes. But we can have a template first mentality where it's not that we don't allow people to make blank content, but we train everyone to first look at the templates that are useful. This does require some upfront investment on building up, Arzlan found it, enforce. No, it's enforce. We need to enforce using templates, not enforce. Way to go, Rob. And that's a great example of feedback right there, right? I'm in the session and I'm getting feedback from all of you like, hey, this needs to be changed. Dave found it too. Yep. So a fun thing, help me define whatever enforce means. But by going template first, we can enforce consistency and also speed people up. If I go make a page in Confluence and I know there's a template for my retrospective that includes all the critical data, I'm just going to go do that. I'm not going to make a page and suffer through building it. This does require me to train the team and monitor and support them, but this can be a great way to help ensure your team is enforcing standards or other practices. There are tools that help force this to happen. There are marketplace apps that prevent you from publishing a page without approval, for example. But out of the box, we get templates, which we can use to help ensure people, are publishing good content. Okay, that was a lot of ideas on, I'm going to get rid of that poll, but I still need help defining enforce. Dave's saying time to change the jacket. That's building the program, like considering the foundational things. Why do we do it? What's the ROI, etc. Now we're going to talk about what do we do after we have the program? We've got all these trainings. We have all these ideas. What do we do next? And this is where we're kind of closing the loop. We've told our manager, I've got this idea for training. It's going to reduce our confusion and make our team more effective. They might say, how are you going to prove that? How do you measure the success? So we'll talk about metrics, and then we'll talk about an action plan that you can use from this session that will help you get started. That action plan, I think, partially includes getting a copy of the template. So please pop on over the QR code at the bottom or get your template right here. Now, one thing I've learned is that if we don't measure something, we can't really control it, right? For example, I helped volunteer at a nonprofit auction, and they were recently asked, hey, how much did we bring in by type of item that was donated? I said, I can't answer that question because we're not measuring that yet. So we had to change our process to figure out how are we going to measure these things, and that then lets us change our behavior. So we can measure success in different ways. One is by adoption, another is the efficiency, and we also have compliance, the big C word. I need to back up because I don't have an extra slide. There we go. Adoption is one we can measure kind of through engagement. And this might mean just writing down 15 people showed up to my live session today, 37 people, 100, however many. And then over time, we can say, hey, 100 people signed up, 43 people showed up, and 4 people stayed to the end. Once we start measuring, we can start tweaking and adjusting. So it's just an observation. This happened. What do we change? How can we improve that adoption? Another way you could measure adoption would be to go to these teams and say, hey, how are you using these tools? Or observation. Is Arslan actually using the template or something like that? Efficiency is another thing. We can measure how long it takes someone to resolve a work item, or we can measure a service level agreement. And we can say, hey, last month it took on average 4 hours to respond to an incident. This month it took 3. What did we do in the middle? Oh, we had some kind of training. So we can also look for objective measures. How many work items are closed in a month? How many met their SLA? How many lines of code are written? I'm not saying these are the best metrics, but we can identify and start to look for objective things that we can point at in reality that say, hey, here's how we can improve. Compliance is another thing. I've been at multiple companies that have gone public in the United States. This requires a lot of auditing, something called Sarbanes-Oxley or SARBOX or SOX. And we have to enforce certain things. You cannot just publish code. It has to be reviewed. So I can measure success of a SARBOX, Sarbanes-Oxley training by how many people actually get the review done. That's a very easy thing. We had the training. Did it work? So we do need to consider and think through what these measurements are. And then we have to start taking them and analyzing them. So it's not just something to define them or start taking them. We have to sit down and critically think, what does it mean that our efficiency went up or down? Okay, now an action plan. This is for you to take away today. This is something you can do tomorrow, in a week, at the start of the year, when you feel like it. A good starting point is to survey end users. This could be a Google form, just like the one I sent out, forms.google.com. If you have access to that, you could set up a free account or one through your company. Make sure you're doing it in compliance with policies. But you might just have a single question. What is the most confusing or frustrating thing about Jira? And you'll get back some responses. You could also observe how people work. You could dig through Confluence and just see if it's structured well, or see if people are using labels or not. So you can start to identify things your team is doing that maybe you want to improve, either by proactively asking or by reactively or passively observing. You could also identify some super users, your space admins, and go talk to them. Hey, Arslan, I've noticed you're a space admin in this space. What do you think we should train people on? Or what's the most confusing thing for you? How can I help you? Then pick an operating mode. Are you going to do a center of excellence? Are you going to train up champions? Are you just going to do self-service? And then choose one thing to do next month. So take time to figure out, what does your team need to learn? Pick an operational model, and then just do one thing. Do one 30-minute session. Make one new template. Do one micro-learning. And I'm saying one thing in big bold letters just to help you focus on just doing a single thing. This does not have to be big. If you can identify something that impacts a lot of people, a very simple learning, like sending them a slide deck or by sending a Slack message, can have a massive impact. So I'm going to quickly drop a question in here. Opportunities. So just some ideas I'm putting in the poll. And this is kind of a soft commitment device, but just share, what will you do in January to kind of get started? Identify something new, make a short learning thing. Could be a page, could be a sticky note, whatever. Host something live or something else. But start to think through what you can take away from this and how you can improve your team, even with a small little thing. I know an Atlassian champion who every week would put out a did you know, like a weekly tip. And the tip could just be, did you know that projects are now called spaces? Again, something very simple that will help a lot of people. One example of that is this course that I made. This is a 13-minute Um, Dave, I can't tell if you're telling me to move to to Jira Forms or if that's something you're going to do, but I love that idea, and I'm definitely going to steal it. Um, this course that I made is one example of a small thing. This is 13 1 to 2 minute videos that help people learn, and this is something you can give your team. These videos are all. I also put these on YouTube, but I thought through here. How can I help people? Do you have 1 minute to learn about a page? Do you have 2 minutes to learn about a database? Oh yeah, I've got 1 minute. I'm drinking coffee. So this is an example of what you can do. Keep in mind though, it does not have to be high production. You don't need the amazing costuming and blazer that I have, or the fun lights, or the fancy mic. This could just be a Confluence page you write out a tip on. This could be a Slack message you put out that you write while you're drinking your coffee in the morning. As long as you take time to consider how does it support other people that you work with, and how can you help them out. So just some ideas. So your next steps and some tips, start to think through a plan. What's your plan going to be? How are you going to approach enablement? Will this be a big thing, a small thing, etc.? And then commit to it. Tell your team, here's what I'm going to do, and ask for help. This is one of the reasons I do live study sessions for Atlassian stuff, so I have to learn it. I commit to learning it by doing it with other people. You might commit to learning it by sharing it with your team. Another link to our slide deck and template to help you out. I do have a Discord community. Arslan, I appreciate that. That's another great call out. There are a ton of people out there too making content like myself. I am by no means the only person. Atlassian itself puts out great stuff. So the learning you do every week, every month, every whatever might just be to go into Atlassian community, grab something that looks good, and share it. Hey team, I found this interesting link. It'll help you do X. That took 5 seconds. That can help. I've also got a Discord community. You might have to use a personal email for this, for live chat. Feel free to come in here if you want support, if you want to share ideas, if you want to kick around things. I'm happy to jump on a quick call or share other resources. But also dedicate your time. Dedicate time to doing this. The reason we are talking about enablement with Atlassian products is because frequently they don't get any focus or any help. So if we can put 15 minutes in every week or every month to improving this, we can help start moving the needle. We can pick the biggest problem we can find that seems easy and help people learn how to overcome it. Again, we want to shrink that distance between I need to do a thing and I don't know how to do it. If we can get those together, then our team gets better. Okay, that was a ton of talking. I only think I showed a different screen like 1 or 2 times. I am curious though, again, what folks thought of this. This is a particular topic that I am very passionate about because we do need to know how to use our things. So please let me know in the comments, use that form, and definitely check out that free enablement deck as a starting point. Again, the last 8 or 9 slides you can pull down. So you can download the whole thing and then rip out the last 7 or 8 just as a starting point for your program. But thank you for joining me. I'll have more topics like this. I'm working on a January content calendar. I send out an email to all my newsletter subscribers with it, and I share most of it on LinkedIn. So please sign up for my newsletter. You can get to the link in that QR code or find me on LinkedIn and follow me, and I send out a newsletter there as well. I do want to thank you all for joining me and for tolerating the change in date and my amazing wardrobe with very meowy Christmas. Be on the lookout for this blazer more until the end of the year. But thank you all so much again. Drop any last minute questions in the chat or join us in Discord. And I'm, again, thankful you decided to join me here on this learning journey. Dave, you're very welcome. This is also recorded and will be shared out on YouTube. So if you want to refer to it later or share it with colleagues, feel free. And as a professional streamer, I have to say, please like and subscribe to the video. So just click that little thumbs up button that's down there at the bottom. Otherwise, folks, thank you so much for your help. Dave, you're very welcome, my friend. Oh, there's 2 Daves. Dave M, thank you. Dave D, meowy Christmas, covered in cats. Otherwise, folks, have a great Tuesday wherever you are. And maybe I'll see you later today when I do a session for my folks in Australasia on the AEST time zone. So thank you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you all again very soon.